You want to talk about men's mental health and the unaliving rate being a result of the rules men have put in place.
Yeah. Obviously, with like my military service, I've seen people, and you also hear things, obviously, because we have the internet, is that I've seen people in my life that I knew personally take their own lives. And there were a lot of moments where not just me, but other soldiers would be like, hey, is everything okay? And he'd kind of just be clammed up and be like, yeah, everything's fine. But you could tell things weren't okay. And honestly, when I got the email, like the mass email for our battalion that, hey, he passed away, before I knew, because the subject line was like unaliving, basically, I honestly thought of him immediately.
Okay.
And it goes to my
I get it. Somebody unalived themselves.
Yeah, and so...
Can we get to the actual
yes.
content of the conversation here?
Yes.
You said it's the result of rules men
Yes.
have. So let's discuss that.
So
men's fault, suicide. Oh, shit. Fuck,
not
that's my bad.
necessarily like
Men's fault, unaliving. Like
not necessarily like any men that are alive right now, because these rules were made before any men that are alive on this earth are alive, obviously. But saying that.
You said being a result of the rules men like, have put in place.
A lot of traditional men think like be a man, like, suffer in silence, like, don't like stonewall, like don't communicate your feelings, like, don't cry, things like that. And
well, I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
So if the incidence rate of unaliving has gone up, do you think masculinity has also like gone up too? Or have we seen men become more feminine in the past like 50, 60 years?
We've seen a lot more men that are okay with being feminine.
Right, but so like...
But that's not correlation equals causation.
Rates of femininity in men increasing, but unaliving rate increasing.
Can you show me
Well, you're saying like, oh, it's this... Which, by the way, the traditional or toxic masculinity that you're referring to has been on the decline. So that which you're pointing to is the cause of the increase in men's unaliving rate. It seems like that cause has been on the decrease.
No, I definitely see the need for masculinity. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, masculinity is toxic in and of itself. I'm saying there are certain aspects of masculinity in which there is toxicity, like stonewalling, not communicating your feelings, not seeking therapy. These are all masculine things. I've worked only in masculine roles, and I see this time and time again. It's an expectation that men are given from a very young age, and then sometimes like in June you see like Men's Mental Health Month or something like that, and it's like that seems to be like the only month where men seem to.
Can I ask you a question? If someone unalives themselves and they're a man, do you agree that they're responding or reacting to an emotion?
Like what do you mean?
Are they reacting to like an emotion?
I mean, I'm sure that before somebody unalives themselves, there's a series of emotions that they go through. Emotions like, I think the world would be better off without me. Nobody would miss me. Like things like that. Like I'm sure there's a series of
thoughts and emotions
that happen.
Speak to, you said being a result of the rules men have put in place.
Yes.
Saying the rules are that you're not allowed to talk about your feelings or cry. And
how many times?
She's drawing out some sort of narrative that men being pent up and not crying with their therapist on the couch results in some sort of like a rubber band effect where it's like builds up and then
like where it builds up and it continues until to the point where they reach a breaking point. I mean,
but how is it the fact that like Brian said, if masculinity at its peak was before all of this stuff and there was less self-deletions, why is there more now with the increase of being emotional and more feminine?
Because back then the statistics weren't as accurate as they are right now today in these times.
So you're saying the ability just to track it's
getting better and more accurate, yes.
But even from the point of time where we started tracking it, it's trending upwards.
Currently, because
I'm just curious. I actually don't know.
No.
Is it per capita that it's trending up, or is it just like total number? Because there's also like more people.
I'm pretty
on the
sure.
planet.
I think it's the per capita. Yeah.
I actually don't think it's about emotion at all. I think the strongest link, and I can't prove it. I'm just speculating here, is that men are. Because of modernity, because of egalitarianism, men are not expected to fulfill the duties of men. And to be drawn into work, to be drawn into labor, to be drawn into all of these masculine activities, it even starts early on with children, boys. The public school system is literally crafted to shut down masculine expression. And so, like, what Brian's pointing to is pretty true. It's like men are being feminized, if anything. And if you're going to try to draw a correlation between men and self-deletion, the trend would show a stronger correlate with emasculating men rather than some sort of toxic masculinity.
But then another study would need to be conducted saying that because men are being feminized, suicide rates are going up. You can't just say that one is because of the other.
No, I would. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't draw that strict. But I think it's more likely men are depressed because they're not being used fully in society, that they're not being drawn into their duties and into positions where they're used. Like, men respond really well to, you dude, go do this. Just go, it's like we're just like these kind of roaming beasts who just need to be put to work. And I think I would include a variable of technology, which is kind of blameless, but removing men from positions where they're constantly active and drawn into some type of role, a needed role. I mean, think about, you're facing a society as a 25-year-old, and you're looking for your wife, and you're living in a society that literally says women don't need men. Literally, the narrative is women don't need men. If a man his ontology is to be needed and wanted, can you imagine living in a society where the overall loudspeaker that you hear from childhood to now is, you're not needed?
Can I offer like a joining hypothesis? Because I really echo a lot of what Jim is saying, but I also understand a fair bit what you're saying. There's really, really interesting studies on emotional expression in kids. Mm-hmm. So there's two ways that kids and people tend to express emotions. One is externalizing and one is internalizing. And I'm sure you're not surprised to find out boys tend to externalize more, girls tend to internalize more. The issue is that the way that we parent an externalizing child, so if your child gets overwhelmed and stressed, so they start throwing blocks and like kicking shit, basically, they're way more likely to be punished and sent to their room. Whereas an internalizing child, it's very easy to comfort. They're crying, you pick them up, you're like, hey, it's okay, Sophie, go back to your play. And so in many ways, what we do as society, in part because of our expectations of what boys are, but also because we very much fear and resent male anger, is that we take the boy in the moment where he needs co-regulation and he needs parenting and he needs support, and we tell him, go to your room, nobody wants to fucking see it, deal it with yourself. And so we have a whole bunch of boys that I would agree are increasingly being reduced out of purposelessness. They've been told that their proclivities, like wanting to do like play violence, is bad, and having externalizing emotions is bad, but we never actually teach them how to externalize in like a healthy way, which is why most men, if they find things that help their mental health when they've been having severe issues, it's usually through like fitness and boxing, which is externalizing ways of managing your emotions. And so I think there's kind of a duality where I think when we talk from like a feminist lens, we're like, men just need to express their feelings more. And I'm like, well, even when they do, A, lots of women don't like it, and B, we don't like it because they'll externalize a lot of the time. They'll be sent to their room, they'll be told that they're bad, and we don't give them an off-ramp. And then on top of that, really neutral things about masculinity, like violence and roughhousing and all these sorts of things, are also increasingly criminalized. And by criminalized, I mean this in like a pejorative way, not in like a legal way, obviously. And so I think what we're doing is we're setting up this catch-22 where there isn't really a direction that men can be, and the way that they often naturally want to express is bad and harmful. And then especially on the left, we just basically say, you've had the mic for too long, so shut the fuck up. We're not interested in you. I mean, Michelle Obama literally told men to sit up and shut down and shut up. And it's just like, none of this is ever going to be
ironic for a man to say that.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get it. She does have very strong arms. So my alternative hypothesis would be, I don't know if it's fair to say that it's expectations that men have put on men. I think it's expectations that came out of necessity. I think there's a lot of reasons why patriarchies emerge over and over. Were on men that all of us societally reinforced. Moms, dads, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I mean, absolutely. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I've personally seen time and time again where a guy will vent about his frustrations, about what's going on in his life, and his friend just basically tells him, man up, here's a beer, basically. And that's not enough. Sometimes that's not enough. It really isn't.
It's enough for me tonight.
You know what I'm trying to say, though, is that you're not ever, there's no one size fits all, but I'm saying that I do agree that men need to be heard. Men need to be listened to. I do agree with that. I'm not saying that, like, I'm saying that there's just, for too long, men have been told that they just need to take it.
I think that's good. I think they should take it. I think you should say, man up, stop being a little bitch. I mean, I do that as a father all the time.
You wonder why they kill each other, or kill themselves, or unalive themselves.
No, they don't. They don't mostly do that, though.
I'm just saying that you can't say, like, don't talk to anybody, keep it, internalize it, keep it within yourself.
How could you make the link, though, of teaching men to essentially overcome their emotions, overcome their perceived tribulations by being stronger and stronger, and then you're trying to make a link to, if you teach men to overcome things, that results in them deleting themselves. I don't understand how you're making this jump.
Well, let's just say men and women. Women are a lot more social. Women talk to each other a lot more. Men are more independent. They don't talk to each other, yet you don't see women killing themselves, unaliving themselves.
They're not as good at it.
Unaliving themselves left and right.
Men are better at it.
What?
It's like a force
They
thing.
succeed. They can follow through with it. Women fail at it. They attempt it, but they fail more than men. Why is that? In the attempts, in the comparative analysis of attempts,
honestly,
why is the man so successful at it? Like, the women try, but they
Also,
don't do
does
it.
therapy work? Like, in general?
Therapy?
Yes.
Therapy
Like, in
absolutely
general,
works.
does therapy work?
I mean,
Robustly, but I will give you a caveat. Therapy robustly works, by and large. There's a couple of caveats. Therapy is extremely ineffective with incels. Extremely. Incels actually seek therapy more than the general population, but the efficacy rate for them is about 10%.
I'm not even talking about incels. I'm just speaking in general. Like,
I'm
I don't
telling
think,
you, at
like,
data level,
there's certain things
unquestionably
like
it works.
grief counseling, or like if you're specifically trying to address maybe something specific. I guess I could see the application of therapy, but a man just going to see another man or a woman and just, here's my problems.
Well, that's not
therapy
exactly what
doesn't
therapy
necessarily
is.
mean you have a problem.
Wait, hold on, just to be clear, talk therapy is like the most popular form of therapy that there is.
But
Brian,
you're describing a talk therapy that isn't even, like, most men, for example, tend to prefer CBT versus, like,
Yeah, CBT
rational-
has some merit to it, but like, just talk therapy,
Talk therapy is CBT. CBT is the most common form of therapy, unquestionably. There's a new fourth wave of therapy that is getting a little bit more popular, that's a little bit more emotion focused exclusively. Women tend to like that more, but CBT is very practical.
Who here is currently in therapy?
Amazing.
Okay.
Who here's
so
ever
question-
professionally offered
But
therapy?
it depends on the therapist, I would say.
And how many therapists have you had?
Like 3.
How many therapists have you had? Two. If it's not too much to share, what issues are you guys specifically working through in therapy?
So the thing about therapy is, a lot of people think there's a stigma, like, oh, he or she is in therapy, and there's that stigma that comes with it. But therapy doesn't, just because you do therapy doesn't necessarily mean that there's something
So you're
wrong
just giving
with you.
somebody like $200 an hour?
It's not $200.
Yeah, but he asked you.
Can you answer my question though? What specifically are you working on in therapy?
Sometimes I talk about things in my life that made me upset, for example.
Why can't you talk to a pillow?
Here, and
Because
what's your?
I'd rather
are you
talk-
specific? Because I know people are.
Yeah.
Are you specifically working through something in particular?
Yeah, childhood trauma.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I guess the question is, though, sometimes you go this therapy stuff. Has it helped you talking about it?
Honestly, it has to be the right therapist. I currently have one that I stopped seeing because I agree with you. It's just like talking to a wall, and she was like, yeah.
And first off, I'm very sorry to hear that you went through traumatic things when you were a child. I think a lot of people go through that. Have you found that, and this is my experience sometimes with talking about anything that is troubling, I find that talking about it just makes me more upset. It doesn't help at all. It sort of, what's the word for it? It just sort of recycles the feelings, and sometimes I just, if it's something like temporary that I'm upset about, talking about it and focusing on it just makes me more upset about said thing. And if I'm given a couple days to just not talk about it, I tend to just move on past the thing that was troubling. and I'm good. Now I can understand perhaps with something that's like a bit more deep seated and like, you know, you're not going to get over, you know, I'm talking about more of a minor thing, but even things that in the moment are troubling to me. If I just wait a week, yeah, I'm over it.
So when I'm in therapy, we practice something where with trauma, they want you to be, to feel what you felt when you had that trauma, to overcome the idea of like, I don't want to think about it, you know, hush, like it's under the rug, because you're not really working through it if you're just not talking about it and you're just putting it under the rug or hiding it. Talking through it and having that emotional reaction is actually helping you as a person. It helped me. It has to be the right therapist. Like, again, if the therapist is just nodding her head or his or her head, just saying yes, 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 and not actually asking questions, engaging, trying to understand my perspective, or even interjecting and saying, hey, like, what you just said is not correct, like that's cognitive behavioral therapy, then there's no, it's not.
Can I ask you a more of like an empirical question? How do you measure whether or not you've sort of worked your way through something? Let's say like, here's a problem. In between these two things is therapy, and here's you've made your way through. What's the metric for you've made your way through the problem?
There's never I made a way through my problem. I will always live with that. It's unfortunate, but it's the way I am able to react to it, handle it, and talk about it. Do you
want to know the empirical metrics that we use in the science to evaluate? So there's a couple of metrics that are going to be used. One of the most important ones is days off work. So one of the most important metrics for the efficacy of therapy is to see how often that person has to take off work for mental health related issues. So this is one of the most robust evidences for support for therapy, is that people who have gone through therapy miss work less often. Another really good measure of therapy efficacy would be things like relationship flourishing. So if they prior to therapy struggled in relationships, can't maintain them very well, and post-therapy have relationship flourishing, that's oftentimes used, and you see this robustly. Like when I'm saying robustly, I mean millions, maybe billions of data points, right? So this is an extremely established phenomenon that by and large therapy works. There are bad therapists, and there is a pathologizing of normal living that I would totally grant, where people are like, I'm really sad, I need to go to therapy. I'm like, you could probably just talk to a friend. Like you probably don't need to. But there are things like trauma, for example, that have very neurobiological underlyings, that have very, very well-researched protocols for addressing these things. And the thing that she's describing, where essentially you're calling the emotion and the memory forward and reconsolidating it, is based on hippocampal data. We know that when you pull a memory forward and you reform it, every time you re-experience that memory, you're recoding it with like emotional colors. And so the goal of like PTSD therapy would be reduction of nightmares, reduction of days off, and reduction of flashbacks. And it doesn't always work. There are some people that it is not effective on, and there are other ways. But for example, prolonged exposure is what it sounds like you're talking about, is extremely effective on average by and large. However, there is a caveat here, again, which is that overall, we said that therapy is slightly less effective for men. And I would argue that's because we approach therapy almost exclusively from a more feminine approach. And there can be therapies, and there are therapies that focus on more mechanical movement. For example, teaching men to externalize, having therapy that's focused outdoors and with movement, talking about like project related processing. These things do exist and are beginning to emerge because I think men have been underserved by therapy.
Well, it's like you said that you'd way rather just not talk about it, wait out a week. I personally want to talk about it. Well, I can't let it sit within.
You know, there's some variance here. I think you made some good points, and I think that when I'm talking about therapy, I'm not talking about it so much from like trauma stuff, more so like vaguely sad. Like I'm vaguely unhappy. There's not like a specific traumatic experience I'm trying to work through. It's more so just like I'm vaguely upset or sad about something, or I just like, or perhaps the problem's been solved, but I'm just going to be perpetually in therapy.
Yeah.
That's kind of confusing to me too.
Mild to moderate depression and anxiety, by and large, particularly when it's state, which means like you're feeling sad, it's not like a diagnosis, can be solved by community. If you just immerse that person into a community that supports them, most of these things go away, because most people are sad because they're lonely.
Sure. Final thing on the therapy thing, just in response to you, you said you want to talk about things and stuff. Sorry, you want to talk about things?
Yeah, like I got a therapist after that 1.5 year breakup, because I just couldn't put it on my friends to listen to me 24/7.
Sure.
Like, because I'd be so anxious, so depressed. Like, it was.
Yeah, but do you
too
feel
much.
like if I can make it from a relationship realm, I don't feel the need to, like, for example, if I'm dating a girl and she does something that's annoying or something, I don't feel the need to, like, in every instance, if somebody's like said something that's like whatever, kind of annoying, or I don't feel the need to constantly litigate every single minor thing. I think part of being in a relationship is giving the other person grace and like letting like minor things
Unless they
slide.
put the toilet paper the wrong way.
Oh yeah, of course. Then you've got to.
Then it's over.
You know, but I think that like a component of relationships is giving the other person grace to like maybe, especially this is especially the case for women. I think, like if we say something that offends you, maybe let a couple things slide. You know, I don't know. I've had girls who are like every fucking thing.
I don't think
Granted,
I was
I
really
did-
necessarily
Go.
saying. I wasn't saying that.
Oh, you
I
were
was
talking
just
about
saying
that.
like.
Okay.
I have a bad day, I had a bad day at work, or something really shitty happened, like I'd rather just tell somebody about it, talk about it for a second, and I'm more likely to get over it. My brain works on just festering on it. So I feel like
Okay,
that's kind of
that's
like
fair.
where we're different.
We're going to move on. We have a chat here from Blawfest. Speaking of which, guys, TTS is $70. Oh, I forgot to change it. I'll just read it then. Women attempt unaliving more times than men. There are more men who statistically unalive themselves in total. Men are just better at it and less desperate for the attention women see comes from it. I'm going to need to change the threshold on those, but yes. Thank you, Blawfest, for the message. Thank you. Guys, TTS has been lowered. $69 TTS if you want to get it in. $69 TTS. I'm going to finish up with the pre-show notes, then we're going to get into some of the questionnaire stuff. Let's see. We had, final thing for you, Charlie, your final note here. You disagree with the host and others that have been on the show when it comes to the male loneliness epidemic. You think that exists because women are largely waking up to the tricks guys pull, and that's just the free market doing its thing by weeding out weak men.
I do.
What
I do
tricks
think
are
that.
what tricks are guys pulling and that women are waking up to?
I mean, just in general, gaslighting.
What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Gaslighting is kind of like if I said like,
I'm gaslighting you right now. I do know.
okay, well,
Sorry, what is gas?
you don't know what
is-
gaslighting
what
is because you're fucking crazy.
No, what is gaslighting though?
I mean, I don't have like a definitive definition.
You don't
I
even
just
know.
put
I
on
think
the
it's just a
table.
buzzword women like to throw
it's
out. They
Not
like
that.
to.
It's definitely. I can
therapy talk?
define it as like if I'm defining it as a verb, where it's like it's as if I said you did something, or you saw like a text that I sent or something. And then you're saying like, I saw you send this text, and I'm like, no, you didn't. Even though you saw it, I'm now making you question whether you actually saw it or not. That's
Okay.
just like
It's
something
crazy
like that.
making. It's from a movie. This guy like tries to make his wife go crazy by like moving everything like slightly to the left. It's the gaslighting comes from. It's not a psychological like
Yeah.
psychotherapy word. People weaponize it like that, but it's not from
I guess
psychology.
what I guess
No,
what
I
I'm
realize it's a phenomenon. But
I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is an influx of a lot of men who want, as I said earlier in the podcast, someone who wants like a traditional woman, but they aren't willing to be actually traditional men. And, seeing as how, like, would you guys say you guys are free market? Like you guys say free market's the best, like capitalism's not perfect, but it's the best
I
system
mean, I've
we've
never
got.
spoken on my economic.
I'm just saying
views.
that a lot of conservative leaning men will say that I support free market.
Yeah, I don't think you should like dump
And so
toxic sludge into rivers and stuff in the government.
yeah, no, but then
protect for that.
what I was getting at is that like, well, a lot of women say that these guys are really low quality, so let me hold on and like wait longer to see a guy that does come along who is a better quality man. And that leads to a lot of the weaker men who aren't as traditional and aren't really high quality. It leaves them without anybody to go with them, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, I guess that's what I was getting at, is that
Are you saying left-leaning liberals or men who aren't leaning traditional are more depressed, or what do you?
no, I haven't said that.
I was just wondering, like, who's the lonely people here? What's the demographic of the lonely men here?
A lot of men that say there is a male loneliness epidemic tends to be harsh right wing, not like just like conservative. I'm not thinking.
Oh,
like
you're saying the opposite.
Not like normal, like traditional conservatives. I'm talking people who go off the deep end, and they say that there's.
In fairness, if you actually look at incel research, it's extremely politically diverse. It's also like racially politically diverse. Yeah, it's like I think it's a right wing talking point because the left.
incels.
Well, the left is so angry at men. Like the left and left speak, like I'm a left wing person. I advocate for men's stuff all the time. And as a result of that, I'm a pariah in a lot of left spaces, right? The left really doesn't want to be honest with itself about like plights and issues that men have. But like, yeah, even incel data, you have like, there's like communists all the way to like fascists within the incel ideology by and large from what, this is like Costello's research at least.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
so thank you.
people expect it to be right wing, that it actually isn't.
How do you
it's just the people who
determine
talk about it
someone's
are.
involuntarily celibate versus?
This is like a
Can
self.
Like, how do you even know?
Can women be involved?
Like, how do you even determine someone? Is it a self-ID thing or?
Yeah, I think the men who self-ID is that are essentially they're trying to get pussy and
they can't.
They cannot do it, but they'll also like they would never like approach a grandma and like get pussy, which they probably could if they.
Grandma.
Oh, and to answer your question, Brian, yeah, there are like women.
It was in response to the grandma pussy comment.
There are like women who fall under involuntary celibates, but in buzzword spaces,
suffragettes.
they're called femcells. Is kind of like what they call it.
It's impossible. A woman can't be involuntarily celibate.
Well, she could be really, really, really ugly, right? And then it's like most men won't want to fuck her. But most incels, for example, would never fuck a grandma. But there's a lot of grandmas that probably would be down for some young dick and would be pretty open to how ugly a dude would look. But most guys would be like, ew, right? So it's like, yeah, but also the incel phenomena, the femcells do steal a lot of valor from incels, which have a very different problem, by and large.
Get it, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, hold on, let me let this chat come through. Or actually, wait, I'll adjust.
The incels are going to be so mad.
Now, where are you getting this information? You mentioned the science earlier. What science?
Which information?
The
like
incel
which part?
science. He's asking about the incel
William
science.
Costello is probably one of the most like foremost researchers on incel stuff. He's the first researcher who's actually tried to approach incel groups honestly. Most research on incels is like, do they hate women? Yes, they do. And it's like, well, shocker. He's the first one who's like befriended, worked with incel groups and studied them, like where they are in their like forums and stuff like that.
Like Jane Goodall.
Like
Jane Goodall, but for incels.
Yes. I'll let him know.
I'll let these chats come through. Thank you, Blawfest.
Blawfest donated $200.
Thank you, man.
I'm a high-quality, hard-working, respectful and traditional man. I love my wife and my girlfriend so much I don't think I have it in my heart to cheat on them.
All right. Thank you, Blawfest, for the big $200 TTS. Really appreciate it, man. We have your friend Intel Wild coming in to talk some shit, Kyla, so incoming.
Oh, my best buddy.
Thank you, Blawfest. Appreciate it, man. If you guys want $69 TTS,
Intel Wild donated $69. Sweet Jesus, not so bright. Please cover up that stomach. We can see the jelly rolls bursting out.
You know that this dude's fat. You know that this guy is some like fat motherfucker.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I'm definitely heavier than I like I said, I'm at the end of a bulk. So I am definitely heavier.
That's been out.
Yeah. Mine is a little bit out. I just don't care.
Wow.
Like
Nice. Okay.
I guess see me in 2 months, see if the bulk pays. The cutting pays off.
So to you though, you think that there's like femcells exist? Women can be involuntarily celibate.
I think so. I mean, not necessarily in a buzzword sense, yes. Like a woman who's like a misandrist, hates men, I could say that, yeah, that's a femcel. Like someone who just hates men with like, you know, I could see that.
Yeah, but I mean,
I haven't really put much thought into it because I don't think about femcells.
Just curious though, do you think like guys who are mega players who have smashed like 200, 300 women, do you think they're like the pinnacle of feminism, or do you think they probably have like some misogynistic tendencies, or they also maybe have like some views on women that are not particularly like well received by feminists?
I could see it, yeah.
Like
I could see that.
Mega players probably don't have like super high opinions.
I agree.
Of women.
I can see that, yeah.
Versus like the average guy. They're probably, I would say like mega players probably lean more misogynistic than like your average guy who has like an average body count. So this idea that like we're linking like one's ability to get laid with misogyny is kind of interesting, but I genuinely don't see how like I suppose a particular woman could be involuntarily celibate. Like she's just like 800 pounds and like even like she's just bad looking. But like if you look at like these incel men, like probably a lot of them are below average looking, I would say. But I think below, like if you look at like if you look at a quote unquote like a male incel, his female equivalent looks wise, she can fuck 3 dudes in a day.
Isn't the only metric for this whole terminology just sex, like just the act of sex? Like, well, that's the ultimate.
Oh, go ahead.
That's the definition, right? It's like,
can you get sex?
Yeah. So, like, what if it's the case that both men and women are slowly rejecting this sort of like lingering sexual liberation crop dust that we're in, and maybe the celibate thing is actually could be a good thing. What if it's a pushback and people are like, well, maybe I just want to get to know someone, and with technology and all of this promiscuity, it's really hard to navigate.
That'd be a vol cell.
Maybe they just want to like, maybe they just want to like, that's the thing is like, that's why I'm like involuntary, voluntary. It seems to be a bit ambiguous given that there's a lot of other variables at play.
Well, I think it would just strictly be like, this is somebody who's not like waiting until marriage, and they are desirous. They're desirous of at least having a singular sexual encounter, and they can't. Like, they cannot get a singular sexual encounter.
Yeah. Like, that's what I'm wondering. Maybe they should rearrange their priority to...
Sure, you can say that.
For marriage or something instead. Yeah. Maybe it'll change things.
We have Intel Wild here. Oh boy, here it is. Intel Wild. There it is. Thank you, Intel.
Intel Wild donated $69. 5 feet 10 inches, 170. Nice try, crazy lady. WJ. W Jim Bob.
Is that what's he talking? Is that me?
No, him.
179.
He's not a
fat.
That's him. Oh, he's not a fatty.
I see.
He's trim. That's a good. Congrats, Intel Wild. Good job.